Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Alison.
I'm Daniel from Play the Game, formerly known as Kidsplaining.
So, today... Nope, doesn't feel natural. Okay.
Do you want me to say it today we're talking about?
That might be the thing. So I'm trying to think if I focus on that, if we go from there, and they say, like, that's... let's talk about that, Kidsplaining.
We just literally made that change yesterday. So do you want to, if you want to say, can you, like, that's going to be new for some people that know you as Kidsplaining?
And then we get that out of the way.
Open up the door to go.
Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
I'm Alison.
I'm Daniel. We are from Play the Game, formerly known as Kidsplaining.
And Kidsplaining. So your channel just rebranded from Kidsplaining to Play the Game. Like,
literally
you're doing,
yesterday.
Yeah, because you're doing a whole lot of other content. You're doing a whole bunch of fantastic playthroughs. I'll link that down below. But you're doing high quality, like, everything in terms of you've done a major shift.
Yes.
But part of this conversation is also based on the fact that, and that's because you're doing a lot of things. You don't want to just be like, just Kidsplaining.
Yeah. Right.
But this conversation is partially about the kid aspect of things, the kids-focused aspect of, haven't figured out the exact title yet, we'll figure that part out later, but it's something along the lines of playing games with your kids, and a whole bunch of tangents around it, how to best do so, when to not do so, different things that have worked for us in different ways, what our kids look for, how they engage. Honestly, I don't have a lot of specifics I'm going to cover, so much as just general notes I want to hit, plus whatever you guys want to hit, and we'll cover that, but that's my starting baseline. Something to do with playing games with your kids. Yeah. And so I guess I'll start off the bat, and we'll just figure out where the conversation goes from there. I'll timestamp so you'll figure it out later. But starting off the bat is, I love this hobby in general. I'm a huge fan of board games, and I'm a huge fan of board games both selfishly because I like board games, but also because I think it's a tremendous hobby to have as a family.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
When you have things you can do as a family with your kids, like nowadays, it's just... I mean, we have video games, which are video games. There's movies and TV shows. There's books, which are phenomenal, but you can't do it together. You're just reading your own books.
Unless you have, reading time at bedtime and that type of thing.
Or reading the same books. I just gave my daughter Ender's Game. Fantastic. She's loving it. We're comparing notes of all that stuff. So there are fun things too.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. I like that concept, yeah.
And then there's sports, which is obviously a good one. But board games is one of those things that you can do when it's cold, when it's rainy, when it's wet. You can sit around the table, you can socialize, you can have fun, you can engage in different ways in a hobby that's been around with families for a long time. There's a reason Monopoly's been sold forever. It's you grow up, you play the game, you do the thing, and I love that board games do that, but I think that typical board games, non-standard designer board games, sometimes work a certain way. The example I always give is that when you have books, for instance, a kid has a book, and then as they get older, you give them age-appropriate content. I think with board games, we always give them certain board games, and then we never age them up. We just give them the board game. So you play Monopoly, you play Sorry, you play War, and then you kind of grow up and you stop playing those things because we didn't give you age-appropriate content anymore. Yeah. And so to me, this conversation is kind of based around how do you keep your kids playing games? Should you keep your kids playing games? What tricks work for you? What's the reason you do it, and things like that?
See, I kind of lean differently into the age. Like, that was one of my thinking through this conversation. One of my points is I think we in general underestimate our kids' abilities to play games at a younger age. I think we push age appropriate stuff that tends to be like Candyland and stuff that is not actually fun and not actually like it's fun for the kids in the moment because they don't know any better.
Right. I grew up playing Candyland and Monopoly and Mousetrap, and I have great memories of those. Yeah. I'm sure I'd lost them.
But I think the designer games, the hobby games, there's so many great ones that create I have no memories of playing Candyland. I have memories of playing Castle Panic. Like, I have good memories.
Good memories of Castle Panic.
I have good memories of playing Castle Panic.
There are junior versions of games, which I value because there's always that starter game.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's always a game that gets, as adults, when we're getting into the hobby, but kids too, of just like, ooh, this is new. This is cool. Like, I see the Scythe, the Pie in the Sky, and My Little Scythe. Jared, when he was 10, 11?
9.
9?
10.
He read 10. Scythe, the rule book from Star, and he played it.
He taught Peyton how to play.
He let Peyton play the Automa.
We're talking about the real Scythe?
Yes. Wow. We have a picture of it.
Yeah, he let Peyton play the Automa to teach him how to play it so that he could have someone to play with because I was busy.
But I came home after work and Jared and Peyton,
it's like a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old.
10 and 7.
Oh, is that
10 and 7 are sitting in the back in the schoolroom playing side.
Yeah, I love that, and that's it's an
Yeah.
interesting point you hit upon, with the idea like always assuming they know more or less. Like one thing we do as parents, one thing we kind of do, we forget to do, and this is past board games, this is a general thing.
Yeah.
But when kids are babies, they can't understand language, and so
Right.
do you do them. You talk to them. Because that's how you level up.
Yes.
You level up by trying the next thing.
Level up.
Like that's what it is. Leveling
love
up.
it.
It's leveling up. If you're playing an MMORPG and you just go to the same little forest where you're overpowered and you hit those things, you get one experience per thing.
Experience
you want to
point.
tackle the stuff that's hard. But and this is related to board games, but it's everything. What we tend to do as society is we talk to them when they're babies.
Mm-hmm.
They level up. And then we start addressing them in the way that we just we start talking to them age appropriate. Oh, you're 4, so you obviously don't understand this concept, so I won't tell it to you. No, you obviously don't understand this concept, so I will tell it to you.
Yeah.
It's exactly. And so kids end up learning peripherally because they're listening to adults. But if you only teach a child what they understand, they aren't leveling up.
Yeah.
That applies to
That's why
games, applies to conversations.
In classes, you want to be challenged. You want to. Jared is such a perfectionist that I homeschool. So when he makes a failing grade, to him is a C. And he's like, I can't do this. I can't understand. I don't understand. I was like, you can't. I can't remember who it said, but if you never fail, then you've never tried anything new.
Yep, there's a quote of...
Who says that?
And there's something, I think it was Mark Cuban, I can't remember what it was, but he said something about how he used to pay his kids $10 to foul out. He said, because if you don't understand where the line is, you don't know how to push it. If you always are playing it safe, you'll never go close to the line. You have to know exactly how far the line is, and then you step back of it. But until you do that, you don't know where it is.
And I
Right,
think
and so
before
allowing-
we get
yeah.
too philosophical in this question about how to play games with your kids, I think that's a great.
When you're introducing games to kids, you're also teaching them. Like this is.
But again, we're getting philosophical. How do you play games with your kids? Like answer that question.
But it
I
does go
think
deeper than
cooperative
that.
games are a great way to do that. And the reason that I think cooperative games are a great way to do that is exactly what y'all are saying. In that, again, I go back to Castle Panic because that's the game that got us into the hobby.
That's what started
That
us,
is the game that we played with our kids when they were 4 or 5 and 8 or 9. And it was like the beauty of cooperative games, and especially a game like Castle Panic that has very little language.
It's all
There's
color-coded.
a lot of color coding, and it's all open information. Is everyone knows what cards everyone has, and you're not ruining the game by doing that. But those kids still have the I'm going to play this. They can still visually see. Okay, I may not be able to fully understand the scope of it, but there's a whole lot of tiles, and they're getting really close to our walls.
Another
they can
game like
see
that,
it.
yeah.
So it's like reading a book, but you're seeing the monsters come out.
So those lets you address them in a we're in this together. It's not a kid's game, but the more you play it, the more you understand the concepts without having to start out at here you go. Here's a massive game that you need to understand.
An additional plus I've had with cooperative games with my son is, and I have multiple kids that play games, but specifically my son is very interesting in that he loves games. He's obsessed with them. And so when I teach him
I love watching your videos with him. It's so fun.
When I play cooperative games with him, one of the nice takeaways is, in addition to the fact that I can level him into it more accommodatingly because I'm on his team, I'm working with him, whatever, is he can then wander off on his own and play that game himself in most cooperative games. He can set it up, play to a bunch of characters.
Yeah,
most of the rules are there, not necessarily all of them, but he understands the system and he's now able to do it on his own. And he doesn't have to, because I'm not always available. His siblings aren't always interested in playing games, and so sometimes it just gives him that outlet of he's wandering straight into solo because he's introduced to it cooperatively.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really good.
I also think that Daniel and I, with sports and anything the boys have played or done, we're not lenient. We don't let them win.
Yeah.
We play to
We may
win.
not play as cutthroat, but we still don't.
I think there was one game we were playing Machikoro Legacy when Jared hadn't won in 5 games. And we could feel
We
the
knew he
tension.
needed one
we
more.
could feel the emotion because it's a legacy game, so you've got 10 games in there or whatnot.
But he was also putting we could see what he was building towards, and he needed one more turn.
And
I think
did.
I
You
could have won the
it.
turn before him,
And I
but
saw
I gave
he
him
and I
one more
looked
turn
across the
to-
table at each other. We're like, okay, we need to get this to him. Yeah, okay, we're good. But other than that, when they win a game, it's a big celebration.
Yeah.
It's because we're not lenient with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing too, is letting them have that success on their own. And lets them fall in
Which
love
is
and have that
also
good
where the
experience with the game.
cooperative stuff comes in, because everyone's winning or
Yeah,
losing
but you
together.
don't wanna only play
But you also
together.
get to lose together. So it's not
Yeah.
someone has to lose the game, and in good cooperative games, the players lose often. So you're able to have that losing experience together.
But I think that balance is very important. I do the exact same thing of I'm not here to say, oh, you just win everything. If the only reason you like a game is because you're winning, that's a bad character trait we have to get out of the system very quickly.
Yes.
And I also try to teach my kids stats very quickly as well, in the sense that if you're playing a 4-player game and it's competitive, you are not going to win most of the time. You will win 25% of the time.
Yeah.
And so like people often have that perception of like, I don't win that much. You're like, yeah, you win an appropriate amount of times.
That's a really good way to look at it.
People don't get it. Both adults too. Adults I find this as well.
Yeah,
But like, my win rate's only like 27%. I'm like, yeah, on 4-player games you're outperforming.
Right.
Good job. Good job. You're good. You're good at this. You just don't realize it yet.
He has to tell me that a lot because I'm like, gosh, I'm not winning games. Like, Allison, you win a lot more games than you give yourself credit for.
It's a perceptual bias. If you play a competitive game with more than 2 players, you will win less than 50% of the time, and we mentally go 50%. We mentally think, I should win half the time.
Right.
No, you shouldn't. But so that's one thing. I try to teach them the stats aspects so they understand that. But then past that, I don't let them win. I am mindful of not crushing. I am mindful of if they aren't winning a lot or how they're feeling with different things, because both conversations are important. You want to give people a little bit of a incentive. It is fun to win. It is a sense of satisfaction. It's a sense of I've done something well, but also that's only if it's actually a sense. If you win everything, it's no longer a sense. It's just entitlement at that point.
Right.
And so it's a balance.
And we play enough games. Like I had mentioned before, we were talking that we used to never play, or at least very little take that games, because it was just, we felt so mean and we didn't like it. And obviously we had younger kids. We didn't play games like multiple times a week. But now that we play more games, that win isn't as important.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are okay being a little bit mean because that win for that game isn't as important because we're going to play 10 more games in that week or so. And so it's playing more games allows that flexibility. It also helps with quicker thinking or thinking on the fly. Like I am way more, my analysis paralysis has gone way down just as an adult playing more games, because that's like, oh, I'll try and do this time or whatnot. And so that's also helped my quick thinking and just going with the flow. So I think that helps with kids too.
Now, a thing that I think is relevant to me, but I don't think, both your kids love games, right?
Yes.
Yes. So something that's more relevant to myself is, and it's relevant to anyone who has kids, obviously, is never pushing your kids to love the thing you love. That's a big thing. And
that's how you make your kids hate the thing you love.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Tried it with broccoli, it did not work. So it's I don't love broccoli. I'm okay with broccoli. We
don't eat peas, and so we're like, our kids are just gonna have to try peas on their own.
Yeah, but like and this is true of, I guess I just treat my kids the same way I treat people, because they're mini people.
They are.
But it's like with anyone else in my life, I never proselytize the hobby on them. I'm never trying to push the board games. I have board games. You walk into my basement, you see all the stuff. You want to have a conversation? Absolutely. You want to talk about why a grown adult has like 3 dragons back there and I'm playing with a little farm and trying to produce the best crops? I will have that conversation with you and I'll explain it to you. And I'll talk about the things. Like I have a line that I use that's from one of my friends who I got into board games. He's like, the way he compares it, the way he explains board games is he's like, to me, board games are all the thrill and tension of poker, but with none of the gambling. He's like, the way I want to win in poker is the way I want to win in board games. I have that, I want to do well, I want to succeed. But with poker, I need the money. The money's the reason.
Yeah, there's not as much on the line.
It's like with board games, they're so good in what they're doing. That's like, what happens if you lose Terraforming Mars? Well, nothing. I just play another game. But like, I want to win so much, I want to do it. And so I'll talk about those things. Game. But the point is, like, I don't push the hobby on people. If you have a friend who hikes and you don't like hiking, guess what you don't want to hear? You want to go on a hike? You want to go on a hike? You want to go on a hike? Let's go on a hike. Let's go on a hike. Yeah. It's annoying. It's obnoxious. And it makes you resistant to the thing that you were kind of ambivalent towards. So I have many friends I've gotten into gaming. All of them have been peripheral awareness. And hey, we're just hanging out. You can have fun with us. No, we'll play a game. It all works. All good. No pressure. But you don't have to either. We don't care. We're all good either way. And I think you kind of have to take a similar approach with children. I think that never push your hobby on them. Never try to push your own interests onto them. Again, same with reading, same with anything. Yeah. Show them what you love, and they will likely show an interest.
That's the thing. Someone asked me, how do you get your kids to play games? Because we can't get them off of their Nintendo or whatnot. It's like, do you value games?
Yeah.
Let them see you having a good time. You enjoy the game. Always let them know they're welcome to join.
Also, miniature games.
Games with miniatures,
they help. They're toys. Yeah. It's a huge toy factor.
Absolutely.
And like in general, also IPs in general. If your kid likes Harry Potter, grab a Harry Potter game. If your kid like Marvel, there's Marvel games left, right, and center.
Yeah.
You could
and
absolutely
a lot of them
tempting.
are based, like the components and the mechanics of those games are solid.
Our kids play video games on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, that's
like that's their Saturday and Sunday mornings.
Games based on video games now.
Yes, but the first time that we sat down while they were playing their video games, and Jared stopped, he was like, "I would rather play a board game with you guys than play video games." We're like,
feels like a win. We did it. Feels like a win.
I mean,
but it was because we were. I don't remember what it was,
but
it was because we were playing a thematic. Yeah, we were playing a thematic game that like I think it was Tidal Blades.
It was Tidal Blades. He was playing Zelda.
Because Tidal Blades feels like a video game on the table.
And to a certain extent, until you hit a certain age, to a certain extent, kids do crave your attention.
Yes.
And so doing something fun that's with you together, it's like, it's an opportunity. And so you don't push them. You just give them that opportunity. But for me, like, part of the opening to this segue was the fact that not all your kids will love games. Not all your kids will love games equally. All of my kids, I'm very fortunate, all of my kids enjoy games to different levels. But different levels is a key thing.
Yeah, Peyton doesn't enjoy them as much as Jared. He will go on a kick, and he and I play a lot of just little games, like Roll For It, or those type of things where we will take and just go to, like, a coffee shop and play. And he likes that. The games that take a long time, he loses interest in.
Yeah, and so, like, I think
less and less the older he gets.
That's true. Yeah.
My oldest daughter likes to play, and she knows her windows. She has opportunities. My youngest son, my youngest son's 2. We're not counting him. My second youngest son is, well, my youngest son actually does play with pieces. That's not the games. But my second youngest son wants to play everything. He absolutely adores every single game. Like, literally, his was like, "Is this the best game ever?" I'm like, "What about the last game?" He's like, "They're all the best game ever."
I love his energy. It's so I love it.
He's something else. He's something else. And my middle one, though, is interesting because there's a balance, and it's a very tricky balance, especially as someone who, going back to the fact that we all value this thing, I like games. My middle son likes games, but likes specific games and likes doing his own thing, likes his Lego, likes other creative tools. And so there's a weird balance. You have to almost make sure that you're never prioritizing other kids over, like, it's very easy to fall in a pattern of, I'll spend time with you because you're playing games with me, and you I don't. And so with him, I do 2 things to try to be mindful of that balance. First of all, I give him all the opening to pick games. When he wants to pick a game, he does get first pick because he's not as interested in many games.
Right.
So if he wants to play something, I'm like, hey, we're all happy to play that game. I view it the same way I view my again, people in general. When people come to my house, I'm like, what do you want to play? Yeah. I already curated this. Yeah, everything here is what I want to play.
Yeah.
So let you pick. And similar idea, it's like, well, if you're the one who wants to only play 5 different games, I'll let you pick because everyone else will have fun anyway.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is also making sure to spend time on their other things. Like, if they have something that they like, if you only spend time with your kids around your thing and not the other thing, if you want a really quick way for your kids to resent gaming, if they haven't been pulled in as much, it's, well, Daddy only likes spending time with the kids who like board games and I don't.
Right. Yeah.
So board games, it's not, it's a messed up thought.
You got deep there. Ooh.
It's like...
No, it's very valid and very true. Like, right now, our boys are on a kick of going out and trying to find snakes and lizards on our property. And,
so we need to find snake-themed board games.
No, we need to go outside
Wizard.
and search with them. Yes. And then come back in and play a snake-themed board game. But... just because, thematic.
If you want deep and morbid,
do we want that?
Yeah, I think so. It's always fine. I saw a ad once. It was an ad about, like, this son comes home from school and he's like, well, we had this project at school, and, like, there's like, what was the project? Well, the project was, what do we want to be when we grow up? And so they're going through it back and forth, and the son's like, yeah, and I decided I wanted to be a cell phone. The mothers and father like, what do you mean you want to be a cell phone?
Oh, I know where it's going.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's like, well, whenever I want attention, the cell phone gets attention. Whenever I want to do something, Mommy and Daddy are always on their cell phone. They don't pay attention to me, they pay attention to the cell phone. And I figure if I can grow up to be a cell phone, then they'll pay attention. I put my phone down a lot that week.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
But it's true, the idea of, if you want to engender a degree of resentment, if you want to, like, sometimes we don't... I guess this was meant to be about playing against the kids, and now it's just how not to abandon and neglect the kids. But they're good conversations. They're good conversations to have.
Yeah. They really are. But that's the thing is, kids right now, they're growing up with screens in their face. Because we have screens in our face too. And so they think that's their entertainment.
And the silver spoon.
Oh my gosh, that's a good song.
Little boy blue grew up so soon.
Okay, so we are leading by example because our work is here, especially as content creators. This is our work. So I may be on here and it looks like I'm playing something, but I'm reaching out. I'm talking to people. I'm emailing. I'm working. Work needs to have a limit too.
Yeah.
But what that shows is when we have games on the table, we can still be working.
Yeah.
Like, that's still our job. And so we can work and still interact and play with our... And so, yes, it's different than just someone who's not a content creator. But making that time investment is so... I do remember playing games like Mousetrap with my parents and Monopoly. Those are fond memories because that was time where my parents weren't focused on anything else but us.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And I love the fact that this is what we do. And we get to experience this every week multiple times. And luckily our kids like doing it too. And it's something we can do together. I mean, this is
a separate tangential conversation, but just the general healthiness of what games are. Like the fact that there's such an interactive social activity. They just give you something to always do. And I think having things to do, whether you're talking about kids, you're talking about relationships, it's I think having something to focus on that's healthy, because we so often resort to things that are just not the best. You want to play sports together? Great, that's awesome. But what if you're not? Yeah. What if you're not doing something else that's healthy and competitive and helpful? I think board games are just a healthy hobby to pass on. It's a like, and again, it's a balance of I don't want to push my hobby on someone else. I never want to push it. But I think it's such a positive hobby that I do want to see my kids grow up and introduce their family to games. Because I think it's a good way to spend time together. It's a good way. There's all these studies about like the mental aspects, the benefits they have as you grow older.
And that's what we had. We had a good conversation with
Brian
from Brains on Games about just the benefits of having like that many rule sets in your head and just be able that's got to be mentally positive to be able to
memory. You're stimulating memory,
and you're just retaining that. And
I mean, the fact that you can look at these games, it may not remember all the details and all the rules, but you are constantly recalling what's going on. Okay, what mechanics does that game have? That does something in your brain. You're making different connections that makes it function better.
Yeah, and we have something, and you kind of touched on, I don't remember if it was this or before this, like before we started shooting, we have a phrase that we have used over and over is raising gracious losers.
Yeah,
that's so that gaming, because like you said,
our kids have cried after losing a game.
Someone has to lose the game,
right?
Like that's, but raising kids that understand how to lose graciously, how to congratulate the person that beat them, how to be happy for them, and know that again, especially in something with zero consequence like a board game,
right?
Like if you can't lose a zero consequence board game gracefully, you're going to have a hard time when you get a bad performance review as an adult. And like,
they're good character traits. You get to see these things early. You get to see how they work with other people, how they don't work with other people, what they prioritize. And you get to have these conversations. And I think they're good conversations to have. They drive, it's so, I mean, it's raising gracious losers is a big deal. And
for Peyton, like, one of the other big benefits we've had is Jared was a voracious reader from the moment he could pick up a book. Peyton has been a slower reader. He's had a little trouble coming along. He's come a long way, but
he didn't find the reason to. Like it's like
Jared would
knowing
read. Jared would read to him. If we wanted a story, Jared would read the book to him. So, but Peyton has a competitive streak in him that when we were playing games with hidden information,
he'd have to play on a team.
He was motivated to read his cards because he didn't want help. He wanted to win on his own. He wanted to create his own strategy. So that created a way for us to motivate him to just, it wasn't that he couldn't read.
He wasn't motivated.
He wasn't motivated, so he just looked and it's just a bunch of letters. So when he was motivated to read really and comprehend, awesome that was a huge deal.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. My 6-year-old is exactly the same way. He's always fine reading, but he was slower because he didn't care about the books. Yeah. Not enough. And so, but board games he loves. And so he's like, well, I want to read this card. I want to read that card. I want to sign those works. And then he'll read a whole card to me. Like he's gotten to a point where, and it's so adorable. It's one of those moments where you're like, this is why I have kids. This is why I do it. But one day I came downstairs at 7:00 in the morning. It's a weekend. I came downstairs at 7:30. He was already up. They get at 6:30, and he had pulled the game off the shelf and was set up at the table and was starting to read the rules to set up. I was like, we've never played this game. He's like, I just wanted to learn how to play. I'm like, what are you doing? How is this a thing? Yeah. And it's very.
That's so rewarding.
It's very rewarding.
As a parent to see that and be like, I'm winning. I'm winning as a parent.
Something that I think is important for parents to understand, that unless you're having conversations with publishers, you probably don't, with the importance of theme and getting your kids interested in games, is for a lot of publishers, the age on the box is 14 because you don't have to have product testing done if it's 14 and up. And again, you can't have a clearly kids games with minis and stuff and put 14 and up, but for the majority of games that are 14 and up, it's because you don't have to do product testing on it. So if a game,
we started King Kids Play series. We haven't added to it recently, but the reason we did that is because Horrified, people asked us, okay, is Horrified, because that looks like a scary game. We're like, well, let's break this down and let you make that decision, because we don't know your family. We don't know your kids. Why don't we just break this down by theme, by time, by language dependent, by downtime, by all that stuff. So we actually break it down and let the parents decide.
It's a lot better than what I did. I did a video once of top 10 kids games, something like that. And I got a whole lot of comments saying, these aren't kids games, these are all adult games. And I was like, they're games I play with my kids.
I know,
I'm sorry.
that's the thing. So we just
I play Potion Explosion and Meeple Circus, and they're my kids' games. They're like, my kids don't play that. Those are the games I play with my game group. I'm like, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Get better kids. No. No, we do that so that because we don't know these people or what they
And
are
we also don't know
of.
what you find offensive or scary, or what
That's
your
a big
kids
deal.
find
Right.
scary. So that's
Like in Horrified, there is what's that?
there's one card with a pentagram on it. So
Right.
we
So
pointed
we
out,
mentioned-
hey,
we mentioned
if
that.
this is not okay with you, pull this card
Yeah,
out, and
this
now
card
you have
isn't-
no other
A
references.
game like Small World will have the Amazonas,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and some people care, some people don't care, and it's always a judgment
Right.
call based on what you personally care
Yeah.
about.
Right, so that's why that we need to do more on
Yes.
that series. That's why that series is valuable, because we just lay it all on the table. We don't really at the end we'll give our opinion
Yeah.
and why we have that game, but it's
And
not
also,
our
like,
decision to let you.
The art on
tell
the
you whether to
outside
play
of the
a game.
Horrified box is
scary.
very different than the art on the inside
Yeah,
of the
it
Horrified
is.
box. So I'd say if
We
you
need to
have
play
a
the new Horrified game. The
American
North-
Legends?
Yeah.
No, it's called something else. It's called. It might be called American Legends.
American Monsters.
American
American
Monsters.
Monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Because
if
we
you
like
have
Horrified a
if
lot.
you see a game that you think your kid would really like because of the theme, and it says 14 and up, and your kid is 7,
Ignore that.
do some research, because
Yeah.
that's probably fine.
Yeah.
No, in terms of
Yeah.
theme or content, that's always a
that's-
personal call.
yes.
But in terms of accessibility of how easy a game is to play, you can always go on Board Game Geek. They have something called a weight rating.
Yeah.
Everyone's kids will be different, but I would say if a game's rating is under 2.2 or so, it might be a fit for your
Yeah.
kids. Everyone will be different. Some will be more appropriate at 1.5, 1.3, 1.7. You will have different numbers, but pick a game that you know your kids do work well with.
Yeah,
Find
that's
the
what I was
weight
gonna say.
rating of
Yeah.
that,
And then
that's a
kinda-
good target
yeah.
zone, and then start extrapolating outwards. Start moving outwards, because kids will pick
Yeah.
things up and they'll enjoy the challenge. There's
I
nothing
think
worse than not being challenged.
The biggest limiting factor in that is probably going to be language dependence. Just if there's
Yes.
a lot
That's
of
true,
reading
yes.
involved and your kids can't read, or they're too young to read, or struggle, that's going to be. But the strategy, kids pick up strategy so fast,
really
like
do.
shockingly fast.
Peyton will be so quiet over here in his area, and I think that he's not understanding what he needs to do
processing.
next.
Yeah.
And
We
so
were
I'll be like,
playing
okay,
Catan.
do we need to help you? And he's like, no. And he'll look, bam, bam, bam. And I'm like,
But even
okay.
before, like the
you got
first time we
this.
saw that was with Catan, and we're like, "Hey, you want to trade some stuff?" He's like, "No, I'm good." And we're thinking, okay, well, at least he's content sitting here with us and being present with us, even though he's not actually
And then
playing.
it became his turn.
Yeah, and then he's like, "Pff,
Longest
I'm gonna-
road.
yeah, I win." And it's like it was just, and he does that, so he will just sit quiet.
He's
And like
so quiet.
mind management,
Oh my gosh.
a 9-year-old should not be good at mind
you
Mind
call it
management.
mind
So for a
Like-
long time I said Mind MGMT because
Yeah.
I had heard it called Mind MGMT. And I was like, I don't want to just... I know it's obviously management, but if they call it Mind MGMT, I'll respect their wishes.
Right.
People give me so much trouble for me thinking that I was respecting their wishes, and I was like, fine, screw it, management. Mind management, okay, you win.
Yeah, he sat there like
great game.
almost a little scary.
Yeah, it
Because
was,
when we were
'cause he's just
preparing for our
sitting there
playthrough of
quiet
that, we
behind his
played with
shield.
both of them, and he's just sitting there quiet.
How old
just-
is he again?
He's 9.
Nine.
He was,
just
he was
turned 9.
8 at the time.
Yeah.
Ricky, my 10-year-old, she beat me at that
Yeah.
game. I was
And
very
it
happy.
just-
It's
yeah.
so
So
fast.
So fun.
So
I know, I
yeah,
love
that's
it.
that's a great one of don't like it. But you're also teaching your kids to lie, which
Oh, no, I'm a fan of that.
Okay,
I'm a
no,
fan of that. I
have
want to
learned-
know my kids' tells.
Yeah,
I want to know
that's
their
true.
tells.
That's
Okay, okay. This is a backstory with me.
Yeah.
If my dad's watching this, I'll have to send the link. But he told me when I was about 6 or 7, I cut my cat's whiskers with scissors.
Okay,
And
nice.
I was like, oh, this was not good, so I hid them. Well, my dad found the scissors and the whiskers and came to me and was like, Allison, did you do this? And I was like, no. And he was like, just so you know, when you lie, the word send is across your forehead in red lights. And I was like, what? So I would like lie to myself in the mirror.
Test it
like,
out?
see? And he's like, no, it's only when, like, you can't see it. And so when I would lie then, I would I would do this when I lie.
All I'm thinking is I play Resistance, and I'm thinking you have to cover your head all the time. And you're telling me to not. You have to be consistent.
I just would do this when I would lie. It didn't work for very long because I figured out
I just
whatever
have a headache, but I'm being honest. I promise.
But it was like my dad created my own
Yeah.
tell by doing that. I don't do it anymore. I
Fun
promise.
fact, apologies if this ruins anything for you, but apparently if you're asked a question that you want to deny, you don't say no, you respond with a question. So if someone says that you cut the cat's sisters, you say, what? You don't say no.
No, my boys have that down.
Okay. Because
Jared always pretends he doesn't hear me when he doesn't want to answer.
human nature is to try to understand what's going on, and denial is, well, no, of course I didn't do it. Human nature is like, what do you mean? What are
Did
you
you
talking
hear
about?
what I asked?
Yeah.
When you said sweep the floor? No.
That is our boys.
Yeah.
They're just
You said no. I didn't hear you say to sweep the floor.
Well, our trick for that is, clean up the room. Cookie.
yes.
Their hearing perks up in a second. It's amazing. You ever watch The Office? You ever seen Cookie Math? Cookie Math. There's a scene
it's
on
like
the bus.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin's on the
Yes,
bus.
okay.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what's 17 times 532?
Yes, I remember,
don't
and he
know.
just- no, it
What's
wasn't
17
cookie, it
cookies
was-
times
was it
532
cookie
chocolate
or
chips?
pies?
It might have been pies.
I think it was pies.
Whatever it was. It was
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
principle. When you care about something, you make it work. When
Yeah.
you don't
Yes.
care about something, you don't.
Yeah, I remember Oscar was just like, wait.
Is this a thing we can do?
No, we love The Office. You could
amazing.
go on a tangent with that. But this was an awesome conversation. I like being able to talk.
I think the biggest thing is just don't underestimate your kids' abilities to
Don't underestimate.
just
Don't confine.
their abilities. Yeah, don't.
Be
Like
welcoming.
say you have Cthulhu the Death May Die on the table, and your 7-year-old comes up to you and is like, "Hey, can I play?" Don't say no.
Yeah.
Say, "Sit here with me."
I usually what I try to do, depending on the game and depending on what the situation is going on, is I usually try to have them step into my seat. I'll help you. You play.
Yeah.
I'll help you.
great way to
Not
do
you
it.
help me. Just do your thing, and I'll just make it work. And if sometimes they can't, in which case then we're playing as a team. And sometimes they can, and I go off and read another rule book while they continue to play.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a cooperative game as well, when other players can help them. There's a lot they can do. There's a lot they can appreciate. You have to open the door for them so that they can walk in. Don't shove them through the door, and find again, a big thing, you don't want them to resent the hobby. You do not want them to think of it as, well, Daddy loves board games and not me. That's a big thing you want to avoid. It's intense.
That's with the cell phone again.
It's a cell phone. No, it's serious. You can't give something your time, energy, and attention, and when your kid wants it, you're like...
They're only with you so long. Dana and I were having this conversation because we don't have our boys with us on this trip, and we miss them.
Yeah.
They're only with us for so long.
Yeah.
And after that, we can play our games without them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
But we want them to come over.
want them
we want them
visiting.
to want to come over and
Right.
play games with us still when they're adults.
right.
Commonalities.
So
You want
open
commonalities.
the door for them now while they're with you, gently,
Yes.
and then we have board game. A board game group for life. That's what we love, having 4 people under our roof that play board games. It's very
helps.
very
Those 4 play
handy.
games. I mean, you need the kids. You
It's
need
very
kids.
handy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's basically kind of a little scattered all over the place conversation about playing games with the kids, the things we've done, do, continue to do, will continue to do, all those kinds of things. Until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co.
I'm Allison.
I'm Daniel from
Play the Game.
formerly Kidsplaining.
And have a good one.
Yeah,
Bye.
Bye.